Good afternoon, everyone. Market is exceptionally boring today. Maybe we'll get a big move tomorrow or Thursday. But anyway, I had a question come in. Would you be open to sharing how you journal your trades? I don't often see traders share how they go about this process. If it is too personal, no worries. Just curious to see what you track and generally what you look to accomplish with it. Thanks. Yeah, uh, I use an Excel sheet. You can see it on that top tab there on my Google Chrome here. Uh, a lot of other people prefer to use a service. TraderView, as far as I know, is kind of the primary service people really like. I mean, there you go. There's SMB Capital talking about it. I'm not sure exactly what they give, but in general, what you're going to be looking at is some sort of median MAE, MFE. There you go. Can tag your trades. That's pretty cool. You can look at ATRs. You can look at. You could probably look at your average time in a trade. You can do all sorts of stuff. I mean, maybe I should be using it, right? uh, Instead, what I do is I'm ghetto and just use an Excel sheet. Before I actually start reviewing trades, I do a pre-market review and then an intraday review and expectations. You can see today I go over what Globex did before the European Open. Then I'm kind of looking to see how European traders are positioned coming into the Open, and then general expectations. Right, so Globex was largely under the prior day's low until the European Open. This gave bids, put us back in the prior day's range up to the supply that we had going into the end of the day of yesterday's RTH. I put in some expectations for the day. If we head in lower, I'd like to see us hold the overnight high and get into something like 67s. And then throughout the day, I've chunked off the day into what I would consider major periods. The opening range, so that's the first 30 minutes, the opening range to the initial balance to the European close, so 10:30 to 11:30-ish, European close to 2 p.m., so actually right now, and then 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., and then 3 to 4. That's how I'm not just reviewing my trades. I'm reviewing the day as it goes on. And does this actually give me anything? I don't know. I've got no idea. I don't really have anything better to do, to be completely honest. Uh, Maybe over time it'll give me some sort of epiphany, but it's not really something I would consider crucial for someone who's trading like I am. I'm just trading pre-made zones. If I was trading more subjectively intraday, or sorry, maybe I should use the term, if I was trading with more MGI, intraday MGI, maybe this would be more useful. So if that applies to you, maybe that is useful. Getting into the actual trades, this is what I'm actually interested in. These are trades that I write them down as taking them, but I do not actually take all of them. Uh, I don't remember why I didn't take these trades or why I did what I did going back, right? Uh, I will record them as a full loss or a full win. So even though I did not take this trade on February 14th, I will record it here in the 1R taker as a full 1R loss. Okay? Because I want to essentially make my my record. I want to make it as negative as possible. I want to skew it poorly. I want to make it so that if I end up with a positive result, as I have, I want it to be under the worst possible conditions, where I did hit every level, where I did keep trading when I shouldn't have in reality. What this does is, in reality, once you take into account slippage, missed fails, whatever, this will account for that. This will account for the reality of trading, in my opinion. Um, I have two things I look at. This is just more personal to my approach. I do a 1R taker, and this is kind of the baseline. I need to be trying to exceed that. And then I have the adjuster, where I'm adjusting my stops over time. I've stopped adjusting the stop as much, and I'm more so adjusting the take profit. So for the 1 hour taker, I just went with a 5 and -5, just because that seems to be the average harmonic that ES does. And then for the adjuster, I use a tighter stop loss, a 4-point stop loss, sometimes even 3 points, and then I'm going for kind of 5 to 10 points. So that's more personal to me, but that's what I'm mostly tracking, is just the number of trades, the gains, losses, net points, and net R. Uh, Now, let's get into what I'm actually tracking up here, right? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? There we go. Obviously, date, trade, time of day. Time of day can impact you a lot. What I've noticed is if I'm taking a trade, let's say in the first 5 to 15 minutes, those trades will usually take on more MAE, and that's just because the market is whipping around a bit more. There's a lot of orders coming into the market as soon as it opens. But if I'm taking a trade more so like 11 o'clock, 10, 11, I didn't actually trade that, but noon, these trades tend to take on less MAE. That's just because the market has calmed down a bit. So I might, if I see after about 5 minutes that my stop is not being tagged at -4, I might tighten it up to something like -3. And that is simply because, let's give you guys a good view on this. Look at this. This is all I want to show you guys. From here to here, okay? Look at this. Most of the time, the amount of heat I took on to get to 2.5 points of the money is the same amount of heat I took on to get to 5 points of the money. Look at this. It took 3 3/4 points of heat to get to 2.5. It took the same amount of heat to get to 5 points. Right? That trade in total gave me 11 points. Same thing here. 4 4 4, 32 in total. 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 9. 2 1/4, 2 1/4, 2 1/4. Okay, so when I don't know how to say your name, Christiane, I'm not sure. When she was asking me what I'm looking to accomplish with it, that's exactly what I'm looking to accomplish with it. Is instead of doing what I had done in the past, which is, okay, I'll just take 2.5 points out. Okay, that's 1R. I'm just going to take 2.5 points. I'm just going to use a 2.5 point stop loss, and I'm just going to use a 2.5 point take profit, and that'll be good enough. When I actually went back and I tracked this data here, what I was finding was if it goes for 2.5, it's probably going for 5. And if it's going for 5, this is a little calculation I've done over here. If it's going for 5, it's probably going for a 13.25 points on average, on median, right? You can see these are the median of my winners. Winners being categorized as those trades that go for 5 points without losing 5 points, right? So trades that are able to go for 5 points without losing 5 actually go for 13 on average. Same thing with the MAE. Trades that go for 5 points without taking on 5 points of heat, in reality, on average, they only take on 1.5 points of heat. So what do I do with this? Okay, we've come to this conclusion that trades that go for 2.5 points go for 5, and those trades actually really go for 13. So if I see a trade going in the money for 2.5 points, it's probably going to give me a good amount of potential profit. All right, that's our first thing. Our second thing is if I get a trade to 5 points, or once a trade has gone 2.5 points in the money, it doesn't look like this amount of MAE increases, right? It stays at 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1 3/4, 1 3/4, 1 3/4, right? Half, 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 2 1/4, 2 1/4, 2 1/4. That tells me once I've gotten to 2.5 points, I can probably tighten my stop up a bit. So when I enter a trade, I have a 4-point stop, which is huge if you really consider on median, the trades are only taking a 1.5 points of MAE. This is accounting for the outliers or the early trades in the day where it might take on more. But what this is doing is letting me go, I'm going to start with a 4-point stop. And once I see this going in the money to 2.5 points, I know statistically, this is not an emotional decision. I know statistically speaking that my stop can probably be tightened to arguably 1.5 points, but I'm going to keep it at something like 3 or 3.5 points, right? That is still double the median MAE. Same thing with the take profits. Once I get to plus 2.5, I should be holding it for 5 because this doesn't really change. Things that go for 2.5 go for 5. All right, things that go for 5 go for 13 on average. Let's just cut it in half. Let's call it 6.5, 6.75, something like that. So to me, what makes sense is at the end to have a 4-point stop and a 6.5 point take profit. And in reality, once I see it get to that kind of 5 points, we can tighten that stop up. So in reality, it becomes instead of originally having something like a 2.5 point take profit and a 2.5 point stop, instead I widen my stop out a little bit. I let it show me that it has a bid, and then I tighten my stop a bit, and then I'm letting it go for 5, 6, 7, 10 points, right? So in reality, the vast majority of my trades, because I do have a greater than 50% win rate, it's more around 70% in reality, even a little bit higher. When I see 70 to 75% of my trades going for 5 points, I'm only taking on 3.5 point losers. And then I'm winning 5, 6, 10 points on the winners. So that is a great example of what I'm looking to accomplish with the data. I do track other things because I'm a mean reversion trader who's limiting into trades. I noticed that from tracking this, the RTH and external trading hours ranges, that once we get beyond about 40 points on the RTH or beyond 50 points on the external trading hours, there's no point trying to limit into the trades. It becomes too risky. The win rate goes down significantly. So to me, once we get here, so that's about 50 points. Once we get to these larger ranges, I stop trading. So that's another great example of tracking some basic data. This is really basic. This takes me 2 minutes to fill in per trade. Tracking this basic data let me know when to avoid potentially a lower probability trade and how to get more out of my trades and lose less. I've been tracking this VWAP standard deviation stuff. I haven't found any sort of significant stuff for it, but some people do. Whatever. And then at the end of the day, I come in, I do I write down my mistakes, I write down my key lessons, and I have another spot for venting and all that sort of stuff because it's important. It's important to get those thoughts out of your head, to not carry it into the next session, in my opinion. And that's about it. I'm breaking the day down into what happened, what I'm expecting, what's happening, and then I'm writing down my mistakes, lessons, I'm venting, and then I'm tracking what I think are the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum, in my opinion, to figuring out what's working, what's not working, and how to optimize, take profits and stops, and not take unnecessary damage, and not leave so much on the table. Even a 6-point take profit, I am arguably leaving a lot on the table with a median MFE of 13.25 points. I am arguably I should be holding for much more. But that would reduce my win rate. I ran the math. 6 to 7 points on average is a good take profit for me. That's with a current daily harmonic of 10 points. If that harmonic goes down, my stop loss will go down, my take profit will go down, and I'll be trading more contracts. That's essentially what will happen. This is a great example right now, actually. I was long 76s. I got out for 6 points. The MFE was 8.75. It'll probably take on 5 points of damage pretty soon here, which would be categorized as a loser in my base 1R taker strategy. So I took 6 points. If I was holding for 13, that would have been a loss. So I got the high win rate, high probability result with a 1.5R minimum, and in reality, more like a 2R trade. Anyway, that's a long video, but I think that was worthwhile. I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. And Hope you guys can optimize your strategies a little bit, or your take profits and your brackets and all that sort of stuff, and really think of this as a more statistical way of trading. And before I sign off, I just want to say that, you know, I have this more statistical view as to how to do this. Every now and again, you will find an individual who has a very opposite approach, and it can work. Any method can really work. I've got a friend who trades some decent size, and sometimes he goes for 5 to 10 points. Some days he's holding for 10 to 30 to 50 points, and that's just based on how the day is looking to him. It's very subjective. Some days his stop is a point or two. Other days it's 5 or 10. To me, that's much more difficult to trade, but it works for him. It works very well. So my word is definitely not the gospel. I would try and find something that works for you. Anyway, 15 minutes. Have a great rest of your day and trade safe.